Shavua Tov. I'm Avraham Shira, and we are broadcasting from Eretz Israel. It's Motzei Shabbat here, and I wish you all a good week, a new week, a holy week, and a week of prayer and praise and learning of Torah. Tonight we're going to learn something from this week's Parsha that is really essential for our understanding relationships between a man and his wife, and of course his parents. And we're taught this week that Vayetzei Yaakov Sheva, that he left his hometown, he left the place of his parents. He went to a foreign town, a foreign city, a foreign country, and there he would meet his future wives and, of course, his father-in-law and their whole family. Now, this idea of the husband needing to leave his parents in order to find his wife, the Zohar goes immediately. We're in Parshat Vayetzei of the Zohar, by the way. It says, Al ken yazov ish et aviv ve'imo. Therefore, a man will leave his husband and wife with davak v'ishto, and he will attach himself to his wife. But the way the pasuk is structured, it's telling us something very important, that a man cannot attach to his wife properly if he's still attached to his parents. I mean, you don't have to be a brilliant psychologist to figure this out. Nor do you need to be a brilliant Torah scholar to look at the way the verse is written. A man will leave his wife and his mother and his father, and he will attach to his wife. So, of course, we know that Jacob is running from his brother Esau, who wants to kill him, and they have this whole fight about the birthright, and that he's running to the homeland of his grandfather, and where they passed through Haran, actually, when on their way to Eretz Israel. But the Zohar picks up on this idea of leaving the parents. What is it about leaving our parents that enables us to attach to our true other halves, to our true souls, to our wife or our husband? So we know that there is a certain amount of independence that a child needs to develop from his parents in order to really become a husband or a wife. And that independence has to do with finding our true selves, to finding our personality, to finding out who we are without the influence of other authorities. See, because authority changes the way we act. When you walk into a police station, you act differently. You walk into a court, you act differently. When you walk into your teacher's office, you act differently. When you walk into your boss's office, you act differently. All that is because of this nature of authority. But we're not the same people when we leave those offices. And when you leave your parents, you're not the same person you are than when you're at home. And that freedom from that influence of authority is what helps us find our true selves, so that I can be a husband, I can be a father, or a woman can be the true mother that she is inside, and wife, etc. So Jacob was not only leaving his parents because he was on the run for his life. God was sending him on his way to meet his true wives and to build his own family. And to do that, he had to get away from the influence of his parents and all that implies. Now, today, there seems to be a curse of singleness. It's so difficult for people to get married. It's so hard to find your true person that you want to spend your life with. It's the biggest decision you will ever make, who you're going to spend your life with. Now, people say, well, why is it such a big decision? I can get divorced anytime I want. Well, that attitude will get you divorced. I'm sorry. That's not a Jewish position, that I can just get divorced if it doesn't work out. That doesn't work. Jacob didn't go look for Rachel and Leah with the idea that if it doesn't work out, listen, I'll go find another wife. This is a modern phenomenon that the courts and the economics of our society have made it much easier to do this. But what it does is destroys our ability to establish commitment, to establish a bond, a belief in the other person, that this is the person that God wants me to be with. So who am I to leave her because she upset me? Or who is she to leave her husband because, he got home late or whatever? There's a million excuses why people argue and fight in marriages. And as a marriage counselor, I've seen a lot of it, and most divorces are not necessary. I'm sorry. Some are. Yes, it's true. Probably about 20% are necessary. But according to the Torah, we don't just get divorced because you have an argument or you don't get along, or you want to go to a different party on Saturday night. But Jacob, he was on his way. Now the Zohar is going to jump, as it always does, to an even deeper, more expansive level. He says Jacob leaving home and going to attach to his wife by leaving his parents. This is also the idea of the Jewish people leaving Eretz Israel after the destruction of the temple. That when the temple was destroyed, it was really, God gave us our marching papers. God says, you guys are hitting the road. You guys are heading out into exile. You've got a job for me to do out there, and this is the way it's going to be done. So Jacob also got his walking papers when it came time to leave home. And so to the whole Jewish people had to be exiled. Now we talk about the different ideas of why we were exiled. The Talmud will give us at least 5 good reasons why we had to go into exile. Some make us look not quite tzaddikim, for what was going on in the Second Temple period. And some reasons are actually very, very complimentary because the Jewish people have a divine mission that they need to pass on to the rest of the world. And so whether or not we went into exile because we were not keeping the Torah, or because God needed us to teach elsewhere, or because we needed to find our true other half, whatever the reason, we have to go on the journey. We have to attach our mind and our heart to the idea that it's not just about me and my journey. It's what I need to do for the higher power, what I need to do for the bigger picture. And so going out into exile, which has been 2,000 years, and now we've come back since 1948, and really the Jews have been slowly coming back for hundreds of years. That is part of the process. But we see it, Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim. We see exactly what happens in the Torah. Why this is a divine document? Because everything that happens there to the individual happens to the nation, and as a general rule. So that's the idea of the deeds of the fathers are signs for the sons. That whatever our parents went through, we're going to have a little bit of redo, of deja vu from previous generations. And the ultimate example, of course, is the whole Jewish people going out to exile, just like Jacob did. And but now we're at the end of that period, and we're really coming home. Now, along with this idea, that now the Zohar jumps again, and it tells us like this. It brings the verse, Vayivka b'makom vayalin sham. And so Yaakov came to the place of the Har Habayit, the mount of the temple. But of course, there was no temple there then. It was just a giant rock. It was a place of sacrifice. It was a place that the nations of the world knew was a holy place. It was the place that Adam brought his first sacrifice, what we call the Mount of the Temple Mount today. It's over there on the other side of the Kotel. The Arabs have the Golden Dome up there. They have the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's a very sensitive place on the planet, let's face it, okay? But he says he had to sleep there. Night came and it was time to make a camp. So he slept on this rock. All right, what is this telling us? Lifgoa means not only to touch a place, but it means really to strike a place. Like to strike this rock, to come to this place. It's a powerful moment. And the Malka Azir Lebe Matronita, and then it goes right back to what we were talking about before. Male and female relations, husband and wife. Because Jacob is this symbol, this biblical symbol of how hard it is to be a husband. He has 4 wives. He has 13 kids. He has, a whole series of maids. He's got a little mini economy traveling around with him in his tents. And he had trouble all his life. And it tells us, though, a very practical advice. When a man comes to his wife, when a king comes to his queen, well, he has to speak to her with nice words. He has to bring her presents. It says, perfumes, flowers, chocolate, whatever you like. Right? It says, but the chief thing is to speak pleasantly, because begin to bechefkera, that he shouldn't treat her as if it's nothing. What's the big deal? I'm just going over to say hi to my wife, and maybe we'll have a nice time. But if I treat it like it's nothing, she'll pick up on that. Women are made to be extra sensitive to the way a man treats her. And so when he goes to her, it has to be like the king approaching a queen. And it goes on to tell us further, and even if she has a bed of gold, and she has the most precious garments and jewels and jewelry, of course you think you're going to treat her nice because she's wealthy. But what if she sleeps in a bed of straw, we're told, the example the Zohar brings, that he also needs to treat her the same way. That there's no differential when it comes to people's feelings and how you treat them. We can't treat people because of their status, because of their money, because of their notoriety, before their power. No, we need to be consistent in our relationships with our spouses, with the people we care about. You can't, because otherwise we're not really being true. See, if I'm nice to you and I'm not nice to the next guy, how true am I? How consistent am I? It doesn't work that way. So this is what the Zohar is pointing out to us, and that what is the connection to the bigger picture, though, is the same thing for the Jewish people. If we treat the land properly, we get to come home to the land. And if we don't treat the land properly, one of the reasons why the rabbi said we went into exile is because we didn't keep the 7-year Shemitah cycle. We didn't let the land rest as a nation every 7 years as we were supposed to. So that's one example they give why we went into exile. So just like a king has to treat his queen, a man needs to treat his wife, so too the Jewish people need to treat the land. And treating the land is keeping the Shemitah. It's also keeping the Yovel, the 50-year cycle, where all property returns to the original owners. In other words, real estate is seriously controlled. Every 50 years, you can buy a house, you can get a mortgage. But after 50 years, it goes back to the original family, unless, of course, they want to renegotiate. But they have the option. In other words, it keeps the family line intact in terms of the way it was originally set up by the prophet Yeshua when he came into the land. After Moses passed away, of course, Yeshua brought the people into the land, and he split up the land according to the families. Everybody got their piece of the land. So what's the big deal? I got a piece on the beach, you got a piece in the mountain. No, it has to do with your soul. It has to do with the nature of our land and our soul's connection to it. And that's a whole Kabbalistic teaching that we can do sometime. But right now, just to understand that we have to treat the land properly, just like we treat our spouse, especially because the land is even called Mother Earth, right? There's a reason why it's called that, because the earth gives and gives and gives and gives. And we have to treat her properly. And ecology is obviously an important issue nowadays. And it's certainly in the Torah, there's plenty of laws that protect the land. This one of the Shemitah, that we don't overburden the land with growing and not giving the land a chance to replenish itself. And of course, the way we treat water supply is also governed by the Torah. And the way that we treat the animals is also governed by the Torah. People think that just because you're religious, you don't have these kinds of concepts, but it's not true at all. But so nonetheless, we find is that a man, when he leaves his parents and he goes to find himself and to become a man, part of that is learning how to really relate to women. And I'm sorry, I grew up in a secular world, and I don't think I learned too well how to properly treat women. And I'm being honest, really. But once I came to the Torah at 30 years of age, I realized I don't know what it means to be a good husband or to be a good father. And I had to learn the hard way. But, you learn. And when you make a commitment to something, you learn. And my wife and I just had our 27th anniversary. So, that means something. That's an achievement unto itself in our generation. Okay, so I just wanted to share these ideas because really, if the Torah doesn't come down, the highest principles, spiritual ideas, metaphysical teachings, we got to bring it down into action, into this world. And we see right here in the Zohar, the holiest book, is telling us how to relate to our wives, how to relate to our husbands, how to speak nicely, how to give gifts, how to show up on time, and how to leave our parents behind a little bit so that we can discover our own sense of self. Because when you're under people's authority, you cannot really be your true self. And we all know this, and it's inevitable. And that's part of growing up, and that's part of becoming mature adults. And whether you become a mature adult at 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, it doesn't matter. We got to do it to succeed in life and to achieve all the goals. And I can tell you, when you have grandkids and you see the joy in the whole family, it makes it all worthwhile. So God bless you. You should have a great week. We're going to continue our daily teaching of Rabbi Nachman on Patreon. We'll be on the Lighthouse on Thursday night, Web Yeshiva, Insight Timer. We'll be on Facebook during the week, of course, and on Fridays with more Zohar from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So it's God bless you, and it's great to be here and great to see you all. All the best.